Welcome to the Trail Champions podcast with
Jenna, aka the Muscle Mommy,
and Vannesa at That Girl Squats or at trail.of.champions. And today we are going to be talking about imposter syndrome and knowing when to pivot and change things. Lessons learned. Because it was just recently your birthday.
Yeah,
And
that's so nice.
mine is coming up
April what?
19th. So by the time that we go live with this one, it was just my birthday. And I think that we can talk about just lessons that we've learned. Because how old did you just turn?
37. So weird.
32.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
We age. We just talked about it. You're just saying like, well, we are consistently growing older, getting older.
Yeah.
And so with that, we learn lessons.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because when I was younger and I'd hear about people turning 30, I'd be like, you're so old. Now I'm here and I'm like, it's not old.
Yeah.
But some people are old.
Yeah.
You get them, it's like more of a mental thing.
Yeah. What would consist of being old to you?
Like 85. That's
Yeah.
old.
But then there's people like Jane Fonda or like Morgan Freeman who are 85 and you're like, they're kicking ass still.
My Mimi just turned 96. Talked to her the other day and she's still like, now she has her bad days,
Yeah.
but she's still pretty sharp. So, yeah, she had a goal to like walk on her own without the walker. And she's like, I'm walking on my own. But she still has goals.
Yeah. That's important.
Yeah, 96.
I feel like that's such a good thing that you can take throughout your entire life. And I think that that's actually really good advice. You want to go over like advice in your 30s?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hitting this new thing where I just don't care anymore. Like, I went through last year was like a lot of people trying to tell me who I am. And previous me would have been questioning myself, like telling me who I am and like, is that who I am? And now I've realized that most of the time it's projection
Mm-hmm.
or trying to snuff your light. They're trying to put you out.
Yeah.
And so I'm at this place where I'm like, I don't mind. I don't want to say I don't care because I think that comes with like I don't know, kind of like arrogant or nasty foundation to it. It's more of like I just don't mind people's opinions of me
Yeah.
because they don't really hold weight.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about it in the past is that the only opinions that actually matter to you are the people that you hold near and dear to your heart.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So last year was like a lot of people trying to put me down, talking behind my back, blatantly, or telling me I'm a certain type of person. And I finally just reached a point where I'm like, I'm done. I'm done trying to be or allow myself to be who you're telling me to be. I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know exactly who I am. And yeah, just not letting it's like be like a duck, water on your back, let it roll. Whatever, man. That's what you think. You're entitled to that. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you otherwise.
So I'm so silly. I just heard this joke.
Let's hear it.
What do you call a duck? Actually, hold on. Here's a go. Hold on. Yeah, I think that's this. What do you call a duck with no feathers?
What?
A butt quack.
That's cute.
Okay, sorry. Just
Got
disregard that.
ADHD?
Yeah. I think that that is great advice. And I feel like we talked about it in the past is like, I feel like as soon as 2025 hit, I just, 2024 took all of my fucks and 2025 I have none. However, I do still heavily have imposter syndrome and I'm constantly doing that. But I think that that isn't necessarily from what other people think of me, but it's what I think of myself, you know, which is something that I'm always constantly battling. Like, I just did a photo shoot with another photographer, and I was like, up until like the actual shoot, like during, I was just like, I don't even know if this is gonna come out good. I don't know if this is gonna look okay or if they're gonna like it or anything like that.
You were thinking this to yourself, or were you saying it out loud?
Both.
Okay.
I had to say it out loud because I was with Cass, so I was just like letting her know that like these are the feelings that I'm having.
Okay.
And the same thing with like her stuff too. Like I'm always constantly like, I don't know if these photos are gonna come out good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't necessarily say that because she's such a good model in general. Like you can literally take a picture with like a potato and she'll look great. So it's a very easy job.
Well, I can say the one photo that you did show me was phenomenal.
Thank you.
I can't wait for you to post it.
Thank you.
It's a good shot. But I think that's where that balance comes in. Am I doing enough?
Mm-hmm.
But also just embracing.
Yeah.
You know, when I was getting ready for the Olympia and Republic, Sheila, my posing coach, kept telling me, Jenna, you have to find your own lane. And I didn't know what she meant by that. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, like I understood what she was saying to me, but I didn't know what that meant for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally realized it's just about letting go.
Yeah.
Stop, stop trying. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It just
But
kind
good luck.
of, right,
Yeah.
right. But it's just kind of like, don't care so much. What's the worst that's going to happen? You have a bad shoot and you learn.
I don't press record.
A learning lesson.
Well, again, I swore I pressed that button before I even sat down because I was like, okay, we're good.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like,
That's why getting all of your memory lost.
that wasn't your fault though.
Yeah. You can only control what you can control, but it's still like,
Yeah, that was good.
but I still, as a human, I still take responsibility and there are certain opportunities that I lost because of it, you know, and I just gotta keep moving and keep moving forward. I think that's like another lesson or advice that we can give is like, just like Dory, just keep swimming.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Just keep going.
That imposter syndrome can come in many different ways too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had called you about something where somebody was telling me, like, I can't believe you. Yeah, disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking to you like, did I do anything wrong? Like, I still feel guilt. Like, I feel guilty, but I don't feel like I did anything wrong. And you reassured me, like, no, they're trying to manipulate and control you and make you feel bad. And that in essence was kind of like imposter syndrome. So, like, to have somebody around you going, like, you got this.
Yeah.
It's not who you are. Like, I know who you are,
Yeah.
and it's that person didn't
Yeah.
and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
and never will.
Mm-hmm.
And you do. And it's nice. You have to have your surrounded by people that pour into you. And then I got another friend's advice, and she gave me her advice. You did nothing wrong. Um, but distance yourself appropriately.
Yeah.
So, yeah, even those moments of like, you know, I don't mind what people think of me. Like at the end of the day, I don't mind what is going through that person's head, and her opinion about me does
Mm-hmm.
not matter. It doesn't phase me. But on my end, you know, making sure I'm aware that I was operating with the values and morals that I've set up for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and having people reiterate that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 1,000%. I was just thinking there's two things that I wanted to take away from that. One was that you said you had a friend tell you that you need to distance yourself, which I thought was like a perfect segue into when is it time? When do you know it's time to pivot, whether it's a business or a job or a fitness plan, friendships, relationships?
On a social aspect, I would say when the people you're talking to no longer hear you. When you're speaking and their perspective is so set that they're not receptive to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because they essentially are going to like stonewall you in a sense. They're not going to be open to what you're saying. And once I realize that's happening, no matter what I said to this person, the absolute truth was going to be over her perspective, and her truth was going to override the actual truth.
Facts. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not something that you will ever be able to reason with. And so at that point, it's like,
It's a losing battle.
it's a losing battle. I'm not going to invest my energy. It's like, said my piece, you know, respectfully. I felt I was very mature and
You were
held my own.
very proud of you.
Thank you. But I'm no longer, because like being in a very toxic on again, off again relationship for years, you start to realize that there's just certain people that they just want to make you something you're not.
Yeah.
You get to a point where you're like, screw this.
Yeah.
So I would say on a social aspect, it's when, yeah, you're realizing that you're not getting through, what you're saying isn't being received.
Yeah. 100%.
I really like conversations where it's like, hey, this is my perspective on things. And then I hear your perspective, and it's like, I can understand where you're coming from. But that wasn't where I was operating from.
Yeah.
I could see why you see it that way, but that wasn't my intention.
Mm-hmm.
And but I've realized that you have to know who you're talking to, because some people really don't have that emotional maturity to remove themselves from their perspective,
Yeah.
and they have more of a need to be right and control, because saying they're wrong would require accountability and then having to change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just too hard for some
And
people.
pivot.
And pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fitness plan. I'm sorry, what would you think? What do you think?
I agree. No, I agree with that 100%. So I don't really think I have anything to add. I think whenever it comes to both relationships and everything else too, is having that outside perspective of like what you kind of touched on of you called me, you're like, hey, was I actually being XYZ? No. So you have that like third party validation out of it. But I would always err on the side of caution of like making sure you're going to somebody that is actually unbiased or that will think about it logically versus like you're the yes man, because we all have yes men. I know if I call my mom today and I say I hit a car, and she would still be like, yeah, but like she would already kind of have like an excuse for me, like, well, that's not how you normally are, like you just have those people that will always be on your side versus somebody that can like look at the whole picture.
Yes.
I did not hit a car, by the way. I love my house.
Those are my favorite people. Like, I love it when I have my perspective on things and they challenge me.
Hmm.
Like, what could you have done differently? Is there something that in hindsight you could have changed? And it's like sitting and reflecting on that. Okay. Yeah.
Having the mirror friends.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so funny that people call them the mirror friends because you could take that in very in two very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like one, it's like they're putting a mirror in front of you to show you who you are, or they're mirroring what you're doing. Like as far as like they're acting as you act, doing as you do,
Yes.
being a copycat. That's what it. So you can go
Mm-hmm.
either.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. I don't know.
One's just I don't want. One sounds more like narcissistic based because if it's a that's a narcissistic tactic to mirror somebody. Like if you become really involved with something and I start to like take that on too to become closer to you, to bond to you, that's a narcissistic thing trying to like win you over.
Mm-hmm.
But also I could see, I don't know where I was going with this.
I just it was like a random thought.
Yeah.
I didn't really have anything. So as far as fitness, you were starting to go into that.
Pivoting. Now, do you mean like with your diet or your
Yeah.
training
Oh.
or I think it could be several things. Like if you're a lifestyle and you just don't have that like excitement anymore, maybe it's time to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
Bodybuilding, when you start to plateau,
Mm-hmm.
you should change things up. Maybe you need to deload, maybe you need to increase intensity or diet needs to be altered a little bit.
When it comes to a coach, sometimes you might not necessarily communicate.
Coaching, yep. I have a client that um she tends to I can tell that she doesn't fully trust me yet. And that's okay. It takes
The
time.
like the 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Still.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay though, because that's where she's at. And I'm not mad at her for that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's where she's at. Um, but some people like they need scientific explanation for their brains to really understand and trust. And that's just how some people are wired. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't need scientific explanation behind things. Like I need results.
Yeah.
So if I'm seeing changes, like sometimes, and it happened with a prior coach of mine, like what they did was working and I didn't necessarily understand it, but that wasn't my job. My job was to follow the plan. But then I would have other people putting my coach down and I'm going, well, like he's done really well with me,
Yeah.
you know? So I'm more of an intuitive coach or
Yeah.
client too, if that makes any sense. Like when my clients come in, I can tell, like I have clients, walk in and I'm like, you need to let me know where you're at emotionally. Are you tired? Are you dehydrated? Do you have upset stomach? Let me know where you're at because I need to know if I can push you. Because if you came in here and you only had 2 hours of sleep and you're dehydrated and you're up all night using the bathroom, like you're not going to have the energy to push through. And while your mind might be there, your body's simply not.
Yeah.
And so I have to learn how to gauge you based on there's too many variables.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not like a logbook person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about the number on the paper. What premeditates that is how do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I rested? Do I have a whole bunch of emotional shit going on? Which I think men and women are different. Men need that outlet personally,
Mm-hmm.
whereas women, like, we really, when we get hit with emotional stuff, like, it bogs us down. Or me personally. And sometimes a good lift will help
Yeah.
depending on what it's rooted in. If it's rooted in like anger, I'm like super strong, like
Yeah.
frustration, versus if I'm like spiritually sad and like bogged down.
Yeah.
I'm just not like I'm heavy, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like me walking in the gym and getting that lift is good. That's
Yeah.
my best that day,
Mm-hmm.
not the damn book.
Yeah.
Screw the book.
Yeah.
The logbook. I rambled.
No, that was good. I like that. I was kind of brought. I think rambling is good. By the way, I think another thing that is important is sometimes we try to force a square peg into a round hole. And I have seen a lot of competitors this season switching divisions that they've been trying to like where the original intended division was what they wanted and desired, but then they're kind of coming to terms with, oh no, I don't actually have the structure for that, or I keep getting injured because I'm trying to force something too much.
Yep.
And this could actually go with all things. This could be in multiple verses. Like if you're trying to force a relationship, if you're trying to force your body to do XYZ, if you're trying to force a friendship, if you're trying to force a career, there's always like those things where, okay, you have to be bad until you're good, but then there's still a limit, I feel like, where you have to be realistic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have, I know I keep referencing clients, but it's just so relevant. Client comes to me and she's like, I want to do wellness. What do you think? And I said, honestly, I think that you would do really well in women's physique. Like, I think you have the structure for women's physique. Like, you're very dense, lots of powerlifting background, potentially figure, but that's where I would put you.
Mm-hmm.
But I am not a coach of control.
Mm-hmm.
I am a coach that is trying to do more than just get my clients to the stage. I want them to honor themselves and learn how to trust themselves. And I trust them having the autonomy to make the choices for themselves.
Yeah.
I'm never going to take that away from them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to look at my client and be like, you're this. This is where you belong. However, that said, my very first coach, I was figure in a different league, NFF. And when I found this coach, he looked at me and he was like, "Your wellness." And I was like, oh, wellness had just rolled out. And the way they were walking and everything, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I was not that super feminine. And like watching them, I was like, I have to do this. Like, oh. And I, talked to him. I'm like, are you sure? Like, it's so much. Like, I don't think I can really mold myself into that. And he was like, no, you're wellness. Like, you're doing wellness.
Yeah.
And then I kind of let go of my desires. And I'm like, okay, I hired this coach for a reason. I'm going to listen. And I followed his plan. And then years later, I made it to the Olympia. So I needed that push. And I trusted him with that decision. So when I talked to my client, I told her, I was like, this is what I think. If you are really set on wellness, we're going to do wellness.
Mm-hmm.
But you could always do both. You know what I mean? Like, you could always grow into something else.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, I like to have my clients, and she's not delusional. I have some clients that are like kind of delulu, and not some, very few, very rare, but delusional in the sense that, like,
They're not actually doing the things that they need to get there.
yes, they more want to participate in the sport instead of
Thrive in the sport.
put in the effort
Yeah.
to be what is needed, that's required to be what they want.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, think about it. Take your time, think about
I think that's also something that
it.
I've been dealing with too lately is that sometimes I'm like, am I doing enough to like be wellness or even get onto the stage? So then, but regardless, I know in my heart I could not get into a prep right now with everything that's going on. I just am not like mentally capable
Mhm.
to handle that right now. And that's me being accountable for what's going on in my life and what's going on internally,
Mhm.
I just don't, I think that would do more harm than good. However, I do still like to give myself my non negotiables where I'm still working and I'm still increasing my intensity.
Mhm.
And I do feel like I'm growing and not in like a chubby way. I don't feel like
Yeah.
I don't think I'm getting sloppy.
Yes. I get it.
But I don't know. I just keep like, I'm like, okay, well, do you think I could even get on stage in like 2 years?
Yes. Mm, absolutely. As long as you're checking off those boxes, like
Yeah.
you don't have to be locked in to that like as your forefront, right? Because other things are taking precedent.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're still going to the gym, eating your food, being intense,
Yeah.
it's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. Again, controlling what you can control.
Hmm.
Other things that are important, which I feel like we talk about on constantly, is just keeping the good people around, making sure that you have good role models. You are who you surround yourself with.
God, yes. So true.
I think that was like one of the biggest things. That was something that like my stepdad would always say to me whenever I would grow up because I always had like a group of friends with me. And it's funny now because like now he's hanging out with people that I'm like, those aren't good people. Why are you hanging out with those people?
You are who you hang out with.
Yep. And I have to remind him and my mom of that. And they're like, yeah. I was like, if the role was reversed and I was back in high school and I was hanging out with these people, would you want me to do that? No.
There you go.
There you go. I feel like there's always, and I think like recently there was something that I came to you with. I was just like, hey, do you think that I was being too harsh? Or do you think that this was like sound advice that I gave to somebody else? And you're like, no, I think that that's good advice. I'm like, okay, good.
That's all. Such a hard thing. I had that exact, not exact, very similar. And my struggle was, am I being negative?
Mm-hmm.
Am I projecting my past experiences?
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up biting my tongue because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but there are things that just propelled me back to a previous experience I had. And it's hard because you want to help people, but you don't know how things are going to turn out.
Yeah.
Like everything could turn out absolutely fine,
Yeah.
but it's like could also not.
Yeah. I think that's good advice though, honestly. Advice is advice. You can choose to do with it what you will, but at least you said it and at least you expressed these feelings, not necessarily to make yourself feel better, but 10 years down the road, if you didn't say that and you sat down, I think that's how I kind of go into conversations with any of my friends. If I'm going to give you advice, if I do or do not. The way that I think about if I am going to say it, or like especially if it's an uncomfortable conversation, I'll think 10 years down the road, the bad stuff happens and we're having a conversation. Would you be upset that I didn't tell you how I felt back then?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay. If I really feel like that would be the case, then I'm going to talk about it and then also remind you after I say these uncomfortable things. I love you. I respect whatever you do. I will support you with whatever you do, but this was an act of love. And again, no judgment. I needed to say it so you can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Showing you the mirror.
Yeah, because that's especially when you see somebody so excited.
Yeah.
And it's like these are red flags.
Yeah.
Or you're too close.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Empire State Building. You can't see the magnitude of it when you're standing at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
You have to like take a step back and like, holy crap, it thing's huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For you to really understand
Mm-hmm.
what's in front of you. But that's where emotions can cloud us.
Yes.
And our heart will be like wanting things to be one way when the reality of it is just not it.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's tough.
I also will say, if I told my mom this, would she agree? Would she, um, yeah, would she agree? But not, and we said it earlier, is like my mom will say yes to anything that I do. She'll always be on my side of like if it's me in this situation, but she's very good with other people, like being like outsider's perspective. Like, does that sound right? No, it doesn't. Okay, good. Okay, good. But
Yeah.
she'll also be like,
Right.
eh.
Uh-huh.
She doesn't agree.
Because she wants you to feel good.
Uh, I'm talking about like for other people.
Yeah. But she'll like agree with you on things because she wants you to feel good with
No, 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 no. She'll if
Oh.
it's like advice about somebody else that's not
Oh, oh,
me,
oh, oh.
she'll be actually very logical and she'll to say, meh, I don't agree with what you're saying. I'm like, oh, okay,
Oh, okay. Okay, okay,
that's
okay.
what I meant.
I see.
Because earlier I said that she'll agree with me
Yep.
on all of these things, but that's just if it's me. But if it's somebody else, she's
Right.
able to take emotion out of it
Got it.
because she's also had a lot of experience with
Hmm.
people.
That's interesting that they're surrounding themselves with.
Yeah, I know. But it's not necessarily. So my stepdad, he's an interesting character. Papa Mikey. Love him. But I feel like he loves to be around people. He's very extroverted. They love going to the bar. They love hosting. I think it was always like this part of him that wanted to be validated. He's always gone out for validation from other people. And so finally, whenever he meets somebody, like meets a group of people that think he's funny, think he's great, think oh blah blah, blah, and he is, they're not necessarily challenging him intellectually, but they're kind of like boasting ego. And I feel like it's something that he's always needed, but they just happen to not be like the most ideal people that I would personally hang out with or think are the best people. But they have changed. They have changed like their surroundings since we had that conversation like 3 months ago. So they end up going to a different bar because they took off their rose colored glasses and like, oh yeah, this is kind of weird.
Yeah. I just came across something online and it said the title was Need Advice, Please Give Me Strength. And then she goes into she and a guy matched and they were texting and they hooked up one time
Mm-hmm.
and things fell off after a week. She's like, I have needs. I want to reach out to him. What are your advice? Or what's your advice? And literally every single female on that entire feed was like, have fun, text them, you know, there's no harm in it, da 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 da. Like, you have needs, go for it. And I commented and I was like, I'm going to go against literally everybody on here and tell you not to do it. He hasn't reached out. You haven't reached out. And you started this whole thing with asking for strength.
Yeah.
And like everybody missed that.
Yeah.
And it's like,
You already said what you think.
you started it with asking for strength,
Mm-hmm.
not coercion or like trying to give you permission.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like you want to, when I think about my friends, it's like you know what you should and shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so your ego sometimes wants to do what you know you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And then you have the friends that are like, no, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I look for. Like, I want my friends to
Hold you
validate,
accountable.
hold me accountable and validate what's right for me
Mm-hmm.
in the long run, not a,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, or like what I desire in the short term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you're on a diet and if you're in a work environment like 9 to 5 cubicle and you're dieting and people are bringing in pizza and all this and that and they're having these company meals and they're like, you've worked so hard, you can have a slice of pizza, you can have one cookie, Vannesa, versus somebody over there going, no, don't do that, you've worked too hard, you're working too hard, don't do that. Like, who do you want to listen to?
Yeah.
Like, ego will be like, yeah, man, I do deserve that pizza.
Yeah. And then we're in such a weird place because some people just they don't understand the extremes, especially like if it's a lifestyle client, there's a way different approach to that. But if you have been dieting for 20 weeks and you have that one cookie, that could be opening up the floodgates that other people just don't understand.
Right. And that can go down to literally any advice.
Yeah.
That girl, like, who knows?
Yeah.
If she reached out to this guy, she didn't know him.
Yeah.
Maybe he's absolutely toxic. Maybe he has some kind of STD. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, think about the long term. The short term is you getting laid.
Yeah. Great.
The long term, you have no clue what that is.
Mm-hmm. Let's do one more. I think last advice. And we've said it before, but treat yourself as your best friend. Treat yourself the way that you would treat your best friend.
Mm-hmm. How do you treat your best friends?
Yeah. With grace.
Are you a
with
yes
love?
man?
Yeah. But wait.
You know what I'm saying? Like, some people are just like, yeah.
So you want them to do that to themselves?
No.
Yeah.
But I think that would take some self-reflection. Like, how do you treat your friends?
Mm-hmm.
Do you just agree with everything they say? Or are you honest with them? And
got it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'm actually very excited. So the other one was recorded. It just turned off at a certain time. That's good. But we appreciate you guys.
yes, thank you.
Next episode, we are going to go through Reddits.
Yeah. I had a Reddit that went viral.
Yeah, you talked about that one.
I did.
Yeah, whenever it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're open to talking about it, we can talk about it, but we also don't have to.
I'll talk about it now.
No? Okay. And so that's gonna be in this next one. And is there anything else that we need to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and follow
The Muscle Mommy
and That Girl Squats or at
Champions.
trail.of.champions. And until next time, we'll see you next time.
Bye. Bye.